Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complaisance, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. I hope you all are doing as well as you can out there during this unique time. I have some things before we get to my talk with Jason Hewlett that may be of interest to you. First, On the Trail of UFOs is available now. You can go to Amazon, Vimeo On Demand, or smalltownmonsters.com for DVDs and Blu-ray copies. I also have a special going to get you guys more content during this time allotted at home for most of us. I have a limited number of copies of Wood Knocks Volume 4 by David Weatherly, which of course I am a contributor to. They are ready to sign and send out to those who become a yearly member of iTF Insider. And of course, the moment you sign up, you will have instant access to all past and upcoming Insider episodes, which now I've actually started a stream of live video, especially for insiders to join in with me. Also, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, the Kindle edition, is on sale for 99 cents. Head to Amazon.com to purchase. This deal will run through March 26th. As far as Beyond the Fray publishing goes, G. Michael Hoff and I are very proud to announce our first offering, and that would be Ken Gerhard's The Essential Guide to Bigfoot in Kindle edition. So head to Amazon.com right now to download and consume today. And last but not least, there are 2 different Kickstarters running right now in which I fully support the folks pitching these projects. First, as mentioned on episode 229, Derek Hayes of the Monsters Among Us podcast and David Flora of Blurry Photos are looking to put together a documentary all about the high strangeness in the Borrego State Park in California. And actually at this point, they only need a few $1,000s more to make that happen. And trust us, every little bit helps. So go to Kickstarter.com and search Borrego Triangle. That is BORREGO. And also, author Luke Phillips. You've heard him on iTF episode 92, talking about cryptid cats, the lions of Tsavo, Bigfoot, and even his own big cat sighting. Well, he's got 2 books already out, one titled Shadow Beast and the other The Daughters of the Darkness. These are fiction based on fact, and he's actually looking to release the 3rd, which is titled Phantom Beast. His goal on Kickstarter to release the 3rd book is $920. He is already $300 in. So he's looking for some help to get this 3rd book produced. Again, head to Kickstarter and search either Luke Phillips or Phantom Beast. And probably the easiest way to find all of the links that I just mentioned, just head to intothefrayradio.com, click on this episode, and all of the links will be right there in the show notes for you. And without further ado, here is my talk with Jason.
So we're staying home as much as we can, but then, we finished filming our thing last night, so we did that. We got another case on Saturday we're going to go, you know what I mean? But It's a rural property where we're not around a lot of people. When they say lockdown, we will lock down, obviously, right? But it hasn't come to that here yet.
When you can't really get it or give it to ghosts so far.
No,
so
you can't.
they're immune thus far from the coronavirus, so they're good.
They're okay that way, like with us being around. So
and
we'll see.
I was looking this morning before I got out of bed. I was just perusing through social media, and of course it would be Florida. So Florida beaches, specifically Clearwater Beach and one more that they brought up, was absolutely packed, as if absolutely nothing was going on. Like people in massive groups in the water, they're just laying right next to each other on the beach. And
Oh my God.
they're kind of going, guys, hello, that kind of is breaking what the CDC is telling you to do. But
No kidding.
you know, depending on who you talk to, it's either this is exactly what needs to happen, or this is totally overblown. So I don't know. I sit somewhere in the middle. I don't know quite yet what to think, really, but I'm just taking some opinions, you know, to heart, and others, you know, I'm kind of going, well, just in case. I mean, it's not the worst thing to stay at home as long as you have enough food and supplies and things like that. So
I'm exactly the same. And I mean, and I am socializing with people, but people who I really know.
Yeah.
Right. And other people I keep a distance. Here they're telling us 6 feet. So, I mean, I talked to my neighbor across the fence. There's a good 6 feet between us. You know what I mean? Like that. You can't just, yeah. That's sort of the approach I'm taking. And my close friends who I've known forever, who I know are healthy and stuff, I still am visiting and talking to them, you know, so.
I'm saying,
we'll just see what happens.
I'm saying screw it, and we all just go up and just lick each other as a greeting, you know?
Just get it over with.
Yeah, let's just see. Let's really see what happens here with our immunities and the age groups, and let's see how strong my immune system is. I'm just going to go up and start licking everybody.
It's the test, right?
Yeah, all the doorknobs, everything. May as well.
And then it's over.
Yeah, then I'll be like, all right, maybe I should take more vitamins and exercise a little bit more, and you know, if I end up getting it. So yeah, anyway.
We'll see what happens.
My guest today for Into the Fray is Jason Hewlett, and he is part of the Vancouver Paranormal Society. So he is up north there of us, and it was founded by Peter, correct? And
well, he's the executive director. The group actually started, I guess officially, like as Vancouver Paranormal back in the 60s. And then it's the current iteration in 1993. And Peter took over about 10 to 15 years ago. And he's been hunting ghosts for 27 years all over the world. He's from England, and that's where he got started.
Oh,
he
he's
ended up
from
in Canada
England.
about 15. Yeah. And he ended up in Canada about 15 years ago. And obviously, because he'd done it, you know, in Australia and New Zealand and back home in England, he just gravitated towards Vancouver Paranormal Society, and he's sort of been the man in charge ever since.
Oh, that's very cool. And we were going to have Peter on as a thrice participant here, but he is under the weather, so hopefully he's feeling a little bit better now.
He is. He's starting to, and he did get the test for COVID-19, and he's clear, so that's good to hear.
Good.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good to hear.
Right now, you just don't know, because the symptoms are all over the place. So feel better, Peter, and hopefully at some point we'll just hop back on and have more stories, and he can hop on at that point. So
absolutely.
And some of you guys may have heard me actually on Jason's show. That was just very recently. I was on his From the Basement, so you guys can check that out. And what we were discussing on that was actually completely different from what we're going to talk about today. We were talking about On the Trail of UFOs, and just UFOs in general, people that see them, some of the craft, things like that. And by the way, guys, On the Trail of UFOs is out now. It has been released slightly early, and that is available through Vimeo On Demand and, of course, Amazon Prime. So,
which is great that it's out early.
Yeah.
It's, you know, why not? People are staying at home. Let's start watching now and get the reviews out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I watched the first episode on the big screen. I had already obviously seen some of these things early with my hosting it, but I put it on the big screen, and I'm going, oh, stand up straighter, Shannon. God, you have horrible posture. What do you do? It's funny when you watch yourself, you're like, oh God, do I really stand like that? How I stand up?
I can't do it. I hate watching myself. I'm listening too, because I do radio, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, don't like listening, even hearing the sound of my own voice. So I sympathize with you 100%.
Yeah, we're our own worst critics, though. But so far, people are enjoying it. So thank you guys for the support on that. And of course, please, sorry, before we jump in here, Jason, leave a review if you guys have watched that as well. So,
absolutely.
Yes, we are covering paranormal stuff on this episode and hauntings. And I know that you guys have been out on a lot of investigations. And I didn't know if you wanted to start with this, but in our group chat, you mentioned something about a ghost calling you an effing prick. I don't know if we should come out just guns blazing with that story, but wherever you want to start.
No, that you know what, that was true, and it was that was about a year and a bit ago. Peter and I were doing this location. The Vancouver Paranormal had been to quite a bit. It's called Bailey House, and it's in a small town south of us called Merritt, British Columbia. You can Google it if you want. And this house has had like a little bit of activity, but in the weeks leading up to us going in, it increased, and it's a public house, so it's like a historical kind of building. So people can go in and check it out. But we were there one night, and things just went a bit crazy. And we were using a spirit box, and I don't know if you're familiar with those, Shannon, but it's a device that cycles through two different radio channels at once in a different order. Mm-hmm. And you ask questions, and you get your feedback and your static. But we can call them intelligent responses, where basically the static stops and you hear a voice comes through. And answers the question. The ones that sort of answer a question that you're kind of asking are the ones we consider like, the most valuable, right? Always want to keep a skeptical ear to things like this, obviously, too. But this one night, we had tons of stuff happening. We were in a room. It's upstairs. It was like supposed to be an old kid's room with old dolls, the creepy dolls from like the 1920s, where the eyes always seem to be looking at you and everything like that.
Yeah.
Always the dolls. And we had like toys coming off the shelf on us. And we were asking questions, and what is your name is one of the common ones. And we had something literally say, "You effing prick," clear as a bell when I was asking a question. And it was a male voice, and it was an angry sounding male voice. And we got the same one doing a couple different things like that, like "go away," "get out," the "get out" kind of stuff like that. But what really struck me was just, "You effing prick," because it's just a very distinct phrase that you just don't hear all the time.
No.
And that was a first for me, definitely, in my time with Vancouver Paranormal. But we get things similar to that all the time, and we found that the spirit box, like, first, I guess, have you done a paranormal investigation yourself?
I have,
you have, right? So I don't know how you do it. We always start off with it's EVPs and sitting or walking around asking questions using digital recorders, and sometimes you listen live with your headphones. And we were getting stuff even without using the spirit box. Just little phrases, names. Like if you ask a name, we got a Tom, and we found out later that one of the people who used to own Bailey House was Tom. That was his first name. Yeah, I can't remember the last name off the top of my head, but that was definitely that location is one that we've been to a few times. We've definitely had good luck there in terms of getting EVPs, and like I said, even having like a toy come flying off the shelf. And we actually even had a bathroom door slam on us when no one was downstairs.
So the Bailey House, I mean, besides Tom being a tie-in, what's the other history there, or have there been a bunch of deaths? Like, what's the history of the Bailey House specifically?
Not that we're aware of. It's more just that it's old, right? So there would have been lots of people coming through, and it was an actual house back in the day that's now used as a historical building that people can go in, and there's a shop there that people can check out. It's definitely, here we go. I'm just going to bring it up so I can give you a little bit. It's part of the Merritt's tourism. So
it's nothing like H.H. Holmes, where he was like, dropping bodies down chutes and burning them up in the basement.
It wasn't a murder house.
Nothing wonderfully dark like that? Oh, okay. Bummer.
No, and that's kind of the thing. And then our most recent cases was at a hotel. We can't say the name of it because it is an actual functioning hotel here in the interior. And it has had, over the years, because it's a hotel and it's currently, a place where people, like social housing kind of institute, people have died there and have committed suicide. And so that makes sense that there would be more, even activity there.
Right.
And that's one thing during my time. And I mean, I'm no expert, but you don't need always a bad history to draw that kind of a presence.
Right.
To it. There's definitely those cases where you do. I mean, before I even got into this seriously and was kind of just paranormal investigating on my own, we have a local sanitarium named Tranquille Sanitarium that I've been to. I used to know a caretaker there, and he'd let me go in, and I'd bring people in with me. And that it's a sanitarium. People died there. It was also a tuberculosis clinic. And we had, and there's lots of like urban legends attached to it. And we've had quite a bit of stuff happen there. Vancouver Paranormal hasn't gone, and I just did it on my own. It's so old now that it's parts of it are ready to be condemned. You can't even go into buildings anymore.
Right.
Yeah, but almost 20 years ago you could.
Like trespassing at that point, right? Because it's a dangerous place to even go in.
That's right. And we don't like to go into those kind of places. It's just too much risk involved.
So how long have you been in this, and why do you do this kind of work?
I've been with Vancouver Paranormal since the fall of 2017. And I kind of got in more out of interest. They were recruiting. I was just bouncing around and saw their website and they were recruiting. So I kind of went and applied and then was brought in, and I'm now a director within the organization. But I've been interested in this since I was a kid. I guess I'm not really sure where it started. I like horror movies too. Maybe it ties into that kind of a thing. But I definitely would have, as a child, I would get these weird feelings of dread at night. And the kind that would wake you up and you want to check under the bed and check in your closet and that. And it persisted off and on for years, longer than I thought, would be considered normal for that kind of thing. And then when I was 19, my father passed away, and just things would start to happen. He had a workshop downstairs, and you'd go down there and it'd be this kind of this uneasy feeling, which could have just been because, I lost my dad and it was his space, but other people would use it and they'd get that vibe as well.
Wow.
And it was, I was still living in the house that he built and that I grew up in. And then kind of, I just have things sort of happen at night. I'd be talking to people about, just my father and stuff. And suddenly all the lights in the house would go out with no reason for it to go out because the block was still lit up. And so one day I just said, "Dad, not now." And boom, all the lights came back on.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that kind of is where things really took off for me, in terms of thinking there's maybe more going on. So maybe I'm just like a lot of people, looking for those answers that we all have. What happens after we die? Is there life after death, or is that it? And I have no answer for that, even after doing this for 20 years. But there's definitely evidence to me that there's something going on around
we
us.
usually just end up with more questions, don't we?
We do, yeah.
I'm so sorry about your dad, but you did say that he actually physically worked on and built this house with his own hands that you guys were living in?
He did with my mom long before I was born. But he was a house builder. And so he, built the house. He decided that he was going to build his family this home. And so he did do that on his own, and with his brother's helps and stuff like that. But,
talk about love and emotion being poured into a place, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I always think that there's got to be some sort of draw, right? For why, if spirits can stick around, there's got to be a reason for it, right? There's different theories about that, but I think some of it is if there's a strong attachment to something, they stick around maybe for unfinished business. It was a sudden death, he died of a heart attack, so maybe he wasn't ready to go.
And how long did you guys live in that house after that?
Well, my mom and I lived there. I was 19. She eventually moved out, so late 20s, so another 10 years. And because she moved into her mom's house, it's one of those convoluted stories after her mom died, I took over the house and lived there for about another 2 to 3 years, and would have stuff go on while I was there as well, which is interesting to me.
Do you feel like if you went back there and talked to the people that are living there now, that they would say they've had experiences, or do you think that was just for you, and your family?
I know through sort of mutual people, the people who lived there, they're still there, and they bought it in 2003, and they've never really mentioned anything going on. Whether or not maybe they're open to the idea or not, or maybe it did just stop at that point, right? Because we left. I know even we're in the house I'm in now, like my wife and I and my son have been here for 12 years. I still occasionally get these weird vibes, especially down in the basement. My son doesn't like to really be down here on his own, but it's a basement. Basements are dark. They're a bit creepy anyways, right? But definitely get just these feelings. And even Peter and I did a walkthrough with a spirit box, and we picked up what sounded like a little girl downstairs here in the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Like she was laughing, or she was trying to say something?
Well, we were just like, is there anybody down here? And we got over here in one of the bedrooms downstairs. So,
well, that's an intelligent response.
Yeah, definitely. Right. And just sort of repeatedly, like little hears or things like that as we walked around. So yeah, there's something to it. And I think certain people, maybe if you're just open-minded enough, you're going to see it more. Maybe you want to see it more, so you think you're picking up on something. I'm not really sure, but definitely there's people who never experience anything ever, who I know. And then there's other people like, myself and Peter, who seem to just be drawn more to it, maybe because we're curious and we're looking for it.
Right. Do you guys ever employ anything, maybe not even just in your own home, but things like Ouija boards or tarot cards, or what's your thought and feelings on those things?
I've used Ouija boards and definitely have got stuff. I found I used it at the house that my dad built, and it seemed that would make things worse from time to. It's another form of communication. And that's really all it is. It's like using a spirit box or just your digital recorder. But I know if you're young and you're dumb, like, I used to do it at parties when I was younger, and it just seemed like almost in the movies, it makes things worse because you're not taking precautions when using them properly, right?
I mean, if you brought that in the house, would your wife and kid look at you like, get that thing out of here? Or like, we're not dealing with that?
My wife's very much like a Scully type, so she's not really inclined. And then, with my son, he's 8, so you don't want to necessarily freak him out. So we've never done anything like that here. And I know with Vancouver Paranormal, it's not something we typically go and do. We use as much sort of scientific-based equipment as we can, like motion detecting cameras, REM pods, which pick up EMF readings, and things like that, just to try to, we try to go in first and discount everything else. And then it's all, like Occam's razor, whatever, and whatever's left, even the most, I can't remember the exact phrase, but whatever's sort of left, then you kind of use that as your evidence base.
Do you guys get kind of frustrated that, like demons get a super bad rap a lot of times? Everyone's just like, it's a demon. You're infested with demons. Like the D word comes up quite a bit, it seems.
It does. And I mean, that's something, I guess it depends on your belief system. Mm-hmm. We look at stuff like that as just sort of a negative energy entity, right? If you want to go by the theory that that ghosts are the spirits of people who have passed on, if you're a good person in life, your spirit will be good. And if you weren't that great a person, if you were a jerk, you're going to be a jerk in death as well, right? Mm-hmm. But definitely in religion, the religious connotation is if there's a demon, that has a whole different ball game there. But I've never experienced anything demonic myself, in that sense. I've definitely been around and I've heard growls and things like that in my days, and definitely feel that really intense, almost like, you're mentioning in your Beyond the Fray Bigfoot book, that sudden feeling of complete intense dread that things are about, like, flight or flight comes in out of nowhere. I've definitely had feelings like that in places. Yeah, that there's just bad mojo. The worst thing that I've ever experienced doing any kind of case is I was out at the Tranquille Sanitarium, and there was a tunnel system, because in the middle of winter, counties can get a lot of snow. They can get very cold, so they deliver food and move patients from building to building in the tunnels. And I remember being down there opening a door, and I opened it, and suddenly the door pulled back with such force, slammed shut, and I was thrown into the door. And immediately left because I wasn't going to stick around with that. And the person I was with, she just took off. It was absolutely terrifying.
She took off and left you kind of standing there going, what the hell just happened?
Yeah, and I didn't even give myself that long to think, what the hell? I just, picked myself up and followed her
You're like,
up to open ground.
I can't blame you, okay, for running and leaving me.
No, I'm okay. I would have done probably the same thing at that point, because it was open a good, I had it open almost where you could walk in, and there's something just pulled it with such force that it pulled me off my feet and into the door.
So this Tranquille Sanitarium sounds like an interesting place. So the tunnel system, what was that, functionality-wise for the sanitarium? To move bodies and just goods and whatever?
You bet. Anything from building to building. So food, bodies, people, you know what I mean? Because the whole thing was almost like a little city. So it had a school building, it had like a hospital, it had like doctors would live on the premises, patients, there was wards, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could just go down into these tunnels and go underneath and just go from one place to the other. So it's quite an extensive bit. And I mean, it was like out of a horror movie. Like, it's creepy down there. You need a flashlight, and, you wouldn't want to go on your own. Because you don't want to get lost. And it's creepy. Of course, now they've gone and turned it into escape rooms down there.
No way.
Kind of oh, yeah. Which is quite interesting. And it opens up at Halloween. So they've kind of embraced that, the current owners. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
I think it's cool when they do that.
I think so too. Why not? Dark tourism has its place, right?
Absolutely.
And who doesn't want to go to something like that? I think it's a great idea.
Well, and what else would you do with the space, really? I mean, turn it into a skating rink or something? I mean, a half pipe for the skateboarders? I mean, that just seems to fit all too well to open that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's definitely interesting. And the owners previously didn't want to do anything like that. And the current owners, they've embraced the history of this place and the stories. So why not kind of turn it into something that people can enjoy? And, if you're down in an escape room and something paranormal happens, that just adds to the experience, right?
Right. But it makes you wonder, because it is an escape room, did they, add any automated touches? Or maybe it's creepy enough they just left it as is and just made it the escape room.
I think they've done. I haven't done it myself personally. I definitely
you don't need to because you've already had the experience.
I've been
a real one.
Yeah, but I've heard people do it, and it sounds like they just do a typical escape room kind of thing. It's a creepy enough spot. I mean, and you've probably gone into places, Shannon, you can just feel if something's off or there's a history there. You know what I mean? Like, you just know something happened here.
Every once in a while, but I have horrible antennae. It's like, some people have an innie and an outie. Obviously, my antenna is it's below the surface. It won't come out enough to where I'm like, this place is haunted by 6 spirits, and I will have contact with 2 of them. One will call me an effing asshole. No. It's funny you mentioned the difference between what happens at a place as far as how it's utilized. There's a place out here just outside of Las Vegas called Boulder City. It's a smaller town, and the Boulder Dam Hotel is rumored to be haunted for a very long time. And every time it changes hands, you can tell when you go to the front desk and you're like, hey, can I go and check out the room? They're like, what room? What are you talking about? And you know damn well they know exactly what you're talking about. But and others are like, oh, sure, and they'll take you up there and you can look around. And I think that it's smarter to go ahead and embrace that. I think that more people are interested in it than are willing to admit. And I don't think it's very much a deterrent. Now, what you mentioned about the place that you can't say the name, that kind of makes sense when there's, like horrible like murders or suicides or something, like, oh, well, this room, here's where the massive blood stain was on the floor. Enjoy your night.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Oh, here's where the head was hanging. See ya for the continental breakfast in the morning. I mean, stuff like that I get, but in other ways, it'd be nice if more places would embrace it.
I think so. And we've been to like a couple of places. There's this one other location that we've been to that is a hotel, and they love us to come in and investigate there. And they're well aware of it. We just go in after hours or during the off season when it's not in use. But we've had in the dining room picked up, EVPs. Investigators even seen someone, even though the whole building was locked down, someone walked kind of through the lobby and and up a flight of stairs, like it was a person there. They've gone and looked, but there's nobody there. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that. And we did one EVP session in the room that all of us heard it all at once, like over here. You know what I mean? And it was just everyone turned and looked
live. Yeah, not
live. We're all in there.
Yeah, that's cool.
We're all in there. We all picked it up. We all heard it. And so these people, I mean, they don't want to freak people out, but they've embraced the fact this is going on, and they let a paranormal investigation group go in and regularly and check it out. And we stayed the night, and people have things happen in their rooms. You know what I mean? Like the place just goes off, but they've embraced that and they're happy with it. They just want to know more about it.
Do you find it kind of sad though, that especially considering some of the stories that we hear in the background about, why someone might be hanging around, others are sadder than some, but do you think it is kind of depressing that these things are, and they do seem to be intelligent, not the residual kind, but that they are stuck there, and that you can go interact with them on some level year after year after year, even decades?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, like, why? What is the tie here? And I guess that too comes to your belief. Like, you think, if you're a religious person, there's a heaven and you go there and everybody meets up eventually. But I mean, then why then, if that exists, would spirits stick around? Right, except I guess for unfinished business. Some, I think there's definitely a theory that some aren't even aware that they've died.
Yeah,
they just don't know any different, or maybe they're looking for someone, or maybe like maybe in my dad's case, if that was indeed him, he just wasn't ready to leave yet and wanted to keep an eye on his wife and kid to make sure their lives continued on. That I don't know. And then, like you say, there are the residual where it's just like it's almost like a recording, and they just keep playing things over and over and over again. They can't get out of that loop. Almost like, remember the old tapes where you'd keep recording over it, but you'd still sometimes hear the odd bit of music left over from a previous recording. Maybe there's that. I mean, there's so many theories to this. You can get into like John Keel's, from the Mothman prophecy, there's this whole other dimension and these ultra beings that come in and take these different, you could just go, you can take it as far out into left field as you want. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with, Vancouver Paranormal, and even this show we're working on called I Want to Believe, is just try to figure out something, come up with just some possible answers, even though I don't think we'll ever really have one.
The hunt is sure fun, though.
Well, the hunt's the best part.
Interesting. Yeah, it's addictive. And somewhere I've always wanted to go is anywhere where a battle happened. And not that this would be a happy experience. I actually think it would be very emotionally charged and very sad to see. But it's more the residual type where people will see like the disembodied torso or disembodied legs, but many of them essentially, marching in an endless loop somewhere they've never started really anywhere, and they're not going to go anywhere. It's just on this endless loop, and you can catch that sometimes and actually see that. That just seems incredibly sad, but I would love to see that someday. Have you guys ever been to any battle spots or anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of. We don't, up in Canada, we don't apparently have a big history of many big battles on our home turf.
No, you guys kind of,
Western Canada.
Yeah, you guys behave yourselves better,
We're pretty good at it, I like to think. But I mean, I've heard the story, and I would love to go, like Gettysburg. You hear stories about Gettysburg, where you can actually hear the battle still going on. And even in Europe, you can go over and experience that. I think even at with D-Day in Norway, right? And I think that would be an amazing experience. I often wonder, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing, though. Quite often when you look for something, you don't find it. It's when you least expect it that something comes up, or that you've just turned off all the camera equipment. Something kind of comes through. You know what I mean?
Happens
like just when you're packing it up
all the time. It happens across all of these subjects for Tiana as well. Bigfoot, UFOs, the ghost, doesn't matter. The second you're like, okay, we've been here for 16 hours and, eyelids are shutting. And the second the case closes with all of your equipment, that's when it pops off, which is, there's the trickster element to it, which I actually love, that side of it. So
it is, isn't it? I think that's kind of the most interesting part of it, actually, is it can happen, anywhere, anytime when you least expect it. I remember before doing one of our From the Basement episodes, I was waiting for my co-host Sean to come and pick me up. I was just sitting downstairs listening to music, and I got this feeling of being watched. And I turned around, and literally there's this shadow there, and it just turned and ran away. And this is
again, that's your basement where you're sitting right now.
Where I'm sitting right now. And it was just, but I didn't get scared. It was just kind of one of those, let me just turn around and go back to listening, because what do you do, right, at that moment? I had no gear. I wasn't even doing this in any professional sense at the time. It was just really peculiar.
So you might have more than just the little girl down there.
Well, and I've talked to people. One theory is that sometimes spirits, they aren't always tied to location. They just kind of pass through, right? Mm-hmm. Certain areas. So maybe for whatever reason, there's something just passed through that night. I don't know. It's been really peculiar. And that was years before the whole bit with the little girl happened. That was a good 10 years ago. When we'd only been here. And it was neat. We renovated the basement completely, and it stopped for quite a while. Didn't have any activity for years. And then once I started getting involved with Vancouver Paranormal, it started up again. So I don't know. Maybe just being open to it again. Have
you ever left a recorder down there just running all night?
No, actually, you know what? That's a really good idea. I don't know why I never thought of that. Just to see. Just to see.
Maybe you wouldn't want to hear, because then you're like, should I let my wife hear what's going on? My kid hear what's going on down in our own basement? That's the catch-22 of that.
Well, it is, right? And Peter and I'd like to come down and do more, but we might wait till after the whole COVID-19 when they're out, and just be able to do it during the day. We did our previous one during the day when my wife was out and my son was at school, and that's when we had the success with the little girl, etc.
What's your favorite piece of equipment that you like to employ?
I like the cameras can be great, the motion cameras. Because it's fun just sitting there and you're not seeing anything, and suddenly you just kind of you hear this click, 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 like they just start shooting. And I do like the spirit box because just because of the success ratio that we've been able to have with it. It's quite an experience to ask a question and you get something back. Even when I got the effing prick, like Peter and I just kind of looked at each other and started laughing, like, that's awesome. It's calling me a prick. It makes it totally fun.
You're like, slam dunk, yes.
Yes. And even after getting thrown into a door, it was that was initially shocking, but you kind of get out, you clean yourself off, you get your composure back, and you're kind of like, sweet, that actually happened.
Now, did you feel anything prior to, being thrown to the door? I mean,
not at all. It was just one of those, like, I was getting ready to go in, we were going through the tunnel, and then just bang. It was so quick, you didn't even have a moment to think about it.
You look back, she's running, she's gone. Bye.
Yeah, she gone. I'm going to.
Yeah, be right there. No problem. What are some other interesting things that have happened to you guys while on location?
There was one. It was at Bailey as well, where it was the middle of winter and it was cold and it was windy, and it was literally we were in a room. And I heard like a moan, like that stereotypical moan, and I'm like, Peter, did you hear that? And he's like, hang on. And he rewound, because he has the kind of digital recorder you can keep recording, but you can also mark something and go back and listen. And he was listening, and he's like, holy cow, like, you heard that? And he's like, and it was right beside me. I'm like, I know. And we're waiting, and then we heard it again. And then we heard it again. And we went over to the window, and there's a crack in the window that the wind was coming in through. So we were getting all worked up about it was just the wind.
See, but it's important that you guys, you're okay admitting that instead of going, oh, well, I mean, maybe it could have been that, but we're not going to go over and check it out and debunk ourselves. A lot of people are against doing that, and more should be more than willing and want to debunk themselves.
I agree. And that's something like I just think it's essential, right? I've watched different, doc shows, like all the shows, and automatically it's like, nope, it's a demon. No, like every week it's a demon that they're running into somewhere, or it's not the pipes. It's definitely something, spirit in the wall. And it's like, no, like there's so many things that can explain it away, and you need to do that, because if you just automatically accept it, I'm sure you find, like with Bigfoot and UFOs, it almost takes away the credibility you have as an investigator, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a journalism background. I've done it now for the better part of 15 years, be it on print or radio. And your credibility is everything. And so you have to get all the facts as you know it to the best of your ability before you can say anything. And even then, maybe you don't want to come to a conclusion. You just got to leave it up to, like we do residential stuff, we leave it up to the homeowner to decide in the end, right? We just get as much as we can.
Yeah, if they want to believe it's demons and not just old pipes, then that's up to them.
Yeah, that's up to them. But we're going to say, well, we think it's definitely old pipes because that makes the most logical sense. Or just an old house settling, right? Like they just make lots of noises.
No, it's definitely demons scratching out of the floor. That's it's definitely the D word, always.
Always. I was at a house, it was a residential, and these people had reported, blood appearing from nowhere, water coming through the floor. The child sleeps in the basement, seeing shadows and shapes. We went in, we interviewed them, we walked through the whole house. We saw no evidence of anything. They had blood samples that they'd picked up on a Kleenex, but you can't count that. You don't know where that's coming from.
Right.
They left. We did a good few hour investigation in the place. We found so many books on the occult and the supernatural. And we spent time in the room where stuff was seen, and we were able to, show that it was, we came up with all these logical things, and to the conclusion really that it's just the family wanted something to be there.
Right.
But we had nothing. We didn't get one EVP. We didn't get one thing with the cameras. We didn't get anything with the REM pod. We got nothing, completely nothing. And so we told them that and followed up with them later. And they said, since we'd been there, nothing had gone on anyway. So, it's just one of those cases, I think, of maybe hysteria working up within a family, or just people wanting there to be something there when there wasn't, because maybe they watch a lot of that stuff or read it. They obviously read it.
Occult stuff, as far as they were actually maybe participating in some ritual type.
Could be, like we found the Ouija board, but we found so many books on witchcraft and the occult and the paranormal stuff. Like they definitely had an interest in it,
right?
But they weren't like doing like what we do, which is investigate. So you're reading up to try to make yourself as knowledgeable as possible.
Right.
They just seem to do it as entertainment. And I think they might have either worked themselves into a frenzy, or maybe they just thought it would be cool to have a group come. I don't know.
Well, no, and that's a great point. And that's something that, switching to Bigfoot for a second, William Jevning, one of his favorite things to say, and it's a very smart thing to say when he would talk to a Bigfoot witness, is prior to your sighting, did you have a knowledge of Bigfoot? Were you reading about it? Did you watch however many movies there were out before it? You had your sighting, and I think it's a very poignant question.
Mm-hmm. I agree, right? I think you need to check yourself first before you kind of cry, like the boy that cried wolf, right? Like really think, like when you're in the woods, did you really see a Bigfoot, or was it a log? Was it a bear? Because bears can go up on their hind legs and move around you know what I mean? Like there's so many things to take into consideration first.
Well, let's chat a little bit about the project that you guys just wrapped, and that is titled I Want to Believe, right? Yes.
It was originally going to be a podcast that Peter and I were going to do with my other co-host, Sean, who I do From the Basement with. And then there was interest in it from JoeBlow.com, which is like a movie site. And they're creating their own original content for YouTube. So it's become this YouTube show that we put together. And last night we sort of filmed the wraparound stuff. We went on location to this hotel in the interior. We did an actual investigation there, and then we went in and did this for filming. We did the wraparound stuff, and we're currently just starting to edit it all together into something that I think will be a monthly spot on Joe Blow's YouTube channel. And we're approaching it with the same idea that Vancouver Paranormal does. We want to go in, take away all the Hollywoodized aspect of these paranormal shows and present it as what investigations are like. It might not be the sexiest thing, but we want to try to show it in a realistic light. And then afterwards we do this sort of wraparound bit where Peter and I talk about what happened, what we experienced, what we think might have been going on there, show off the equipment, etc.
So when will some of that be available? And you said that'll be a weekly
release?
I
think it's monthly release, depending just on how often we can get out and do it.
Yeah.
We're hoping that this first investigation and the wraparound stuff will make up a good, because they don't want any of the spots to run more than 10 minutes. So we get a good 3 or 4 to 5 episodes out of that. And then just sort of see how they want to unravel it. But we were thinking once a month. And then we're already going to go out this weekend to another location, which is this barn, and shoot the next run of episodes and do an investigation as well. We're trying to tie it into actual investigations we're doing with the investigators on location, just to kind of, those who are willing to be filmed, and to places that are okay with us filming, just to kind of, just make it as accurate as possible so people get a feel for what really goes on.
And are you guys sitting down with like the owner of the hotel or the bar or anybody that works there, or is it more just your investigation side of it once you're in the lockdown?
We do, like with the barn, definitely the woman knows we're coming and what we're doing, and she's perfectly okay with being filmed. At the hotel we were at, there's the one gentleman that was okay with it, so we talked to him just to get, his actual during the walkthrough and telling some of the stories, etc. We just can't say what the place is called and where it is. But these people here that we're going to, this week are totally on board and excited, actually.
And they're okay with the name being in your YouTube video. That's cool.
Yeah, which is pretty neat. And I think that just shows that, like you say, if it's sort of something that someone owns, that's like a house, and they don't mind people, and it's a rural property, so it's not like people are going to suddenly stop by and like, oh, cool, there's the house from,
Right.
I want to believe they're okay with that. I think when it's a commercial property and they're worried about how it can portray them, then they want to keep it as clandestine as possible.
And do you guys have any outside investigations from filming the I Want to Believe?
Outside ones? You mean sort of from outside what we're doing?
Yeah, like any private residences or anything like that with ongoing activity. Do you guys get calls like that?
Well, we do. Vancouver Paranormal goes through. We've done residentials before, definitely. And I think that's something we're going to try to work into. I Want to Believe people who are willing. We would love to go in and do that where things have been ongoing. Go in and then go back like a few months later and follow up and see if that made a difference. Because sometimes what we've found is either your investigation will end it, or it'll accelerate it, or nothing will change, right? Like it's kind of the 3 different options.
I mean, you had the one where, like you said, you went in, nothing happened, and your recommendation was, I mean, we're not really seeing much here, guys, but do you guys get called out on private house investigations where you've been shocked at what you guys have found?
Mm-hmm. There's been a house where right around this couple having a baby, and right around when the first child was born, things went off the charts, and we got like shadows in the hallway. We got multiple EVPs, and then we got called back. And it died down, but then when they were pregnant with the second child, it started again. And so we were called back in, and they were seeing that the homeowner was seeing as he was pulling out of his driveway a face in the window and all that. So a couple of investigators went in, but they didn't get a thing this time. Like not one thing, which was really interesting. And then the people eventually moved.
He's pulling out of the driveway and he sees a face looking out from his house at him?
At him.
Oh,
God,
out. No.
Yeah, and that would be I know I couldn't go to work at that point.
No,
I'd want to stay home,
if your
right?
family's in there, you're like, who the hell is in my house and why? And yeah, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, it is. And that's one thing. And I know we talked about this, Shannon, and you talk about it like in your book and on your show. Like this has a huge impact on the people that you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Or that you're investigating. And I see it. We're there to try to make people comfortable, because not every haunting or ghost experience is harmful. Half the time it's scary because you're surprised by it, right? It's more of the sudden shock. But I think most of the time they're harmless. They're just trying to communicate, or it's a residual thing and they have no control. They're just, repeating a loop, and you just happen to move into that loop at that right time when they're there. So I think it's important to demystify it for people, even if we say, yes, there's something here, but it's not something to be scared of.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it certainly has to come back to the people and how it affects them and how it stays with them. But I mean, it's nice to be able to as you guys do a lot of times, you go to a location, you have something happen, like being thrown into a door at the sanitarium, and then you're able to leave. But like you, I mean, you do actually have stuff kind of sort of going on occasionally at your house. So that makes it so much more personal.
And it does. And you kind of, one thing that I've learned just from this is you kind of start to communicate back. And you can just say, like, look, this is my house. You're not welcome here.
Have you done it?
You know, I've done it, and it actually has made a difference, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people who are religious say just invoke the name of Christ, and that'll drive anything out. And people have done that, and it's worked too. So, and it's interesting though if things keep coming back, and then you kind of have to maybe find a way to coexist, right?
Maybe you just did the touche, and you just said, "Leave this house right now, you effing prick," you know, just to pay it forward a little bit.
Exactly right.
Like,
we're gonna go back to Bailey, and I'm gonna bring that up and see if whether that one's still around or not. And he's still mad at me for whatever reason.
Remember me? I'm back.
I'm back. I'm the effing prick. It's your turn to leave.
Maybe they'll respond better to that. I mean. And that brings up the side of, you know, some of the tactics employed, and you mentioned kind of the Hollywood side, and then the quote-unquote reality, strong air quotes on the reality ghost hunting shows, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, the cursing and the hollering and the basically just taunting is the tactics that sometimes is employed. I mean, is that ever something that you guys do if there's something with a really nasty history and there's a total a-hole ghost, which you brought up earlier, that, you know, he did horrible things to kids or women or whatever? Do you ever get this urge to just go, hey, why don't you come out and play you so-and-so and talk to us since you're so strong and tough? You know, do you ever go that route? No,
never. That's, I think, asking for trouble. And I think it's done on those shows more for the show of it all. Like we come in, we say, you know what, we're here. We just want to communicate. We're here. We're just doing an investigation. We've been asked to come. We just want to talk to you. That's it.
I mean, what do you make of, and this is, of course, there's no way around letting people know who we're talking about, but, you know, Zach on his show, you know, when he was at that house in Indiana, the one that, I think it was Indiana, right? The demon house, the one he ended up tearing down, where he says that he went to the basement, he saw the black massive shadow figure creature. Actually, you can see it in the museum, and he has a recreation. When Brennan Storr and I of the Ghost Story guys went there, it's an optional room for even the tour guides, because some of the dirt from the actual basement and the stairs were taken out of the house before he had it demolished. But, you know, that's the location where he spent an incredible amount of money on that museum. I highly recommend it. No matter what you think of Zach Bagans, everyone should go there. Anyway, after COVID-19, of course, probably closed.
Of course, yeah. Of course.
It's probably the safest place to be right now, though, I'll tell you. But anyhow, he says that his vision was affected by being down in that basement. You know,
he did too, yeah.
Yeah, like, what do you make of stuff like that?
I know amongst, you know, serious, you know, paranormal investigators, he's kind of a joke because he's gone that theatrical route. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's taken it to such a degree where every week it's like, it's a demon, it's this, you know, it's hard to take that seriously. It just seems to me so overdone. And I think it hurts in a way, the craft, so to speak, or the science of it. But I mean, the Warrens did that too, right? Yeah. Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I mean, now they make movies out of their investigations and stuff. And I think, and I'm entertained by. And actually, I really like Demon House. I've watched it a couple times. I find it's a very enjoyable film. And I mean, you can find stories about what happened there, allegedly happened there online. But I just think when you put that element in, and maybe he did have something happen with his vision. I don't know. I've never met him, but I know just amongst the group of people who take this science very seriously, they find it more harmful what he's doing than helpful. And you know, going in and challenging things and all that, I think it just hurts it in a way. But I mean, it makes for great TV and great movies, right?
I wonder if anyone's ever ran up to him, snatched his glasses, put them on, and just been like, "This is just glass. There's no prescription in these things."
It makes you wonder, right?
Probably going to catch a lot of crap for that. But I'm just saying, I mean, you never know the lengths that some people are willing to go. And I'm not saying that he did. I'm not saying that he's faking anything. Nope. You know, a lot of times it's just it doesn't even matter. I say this a lot. Sometimes it's just a person's perception, you know. It could have been just a coincidence that his vision went out at the same time. I mean, that's really a stretch, but vision, you know, changed at the same time he's dealing with a so-called demon. But anyway, I'm not calling him out at all. I'm trying to make it a light of the glasses and the vision problem, which is not funny, but yeah, I just think of somebody running up and going, these are just glass. There's no glasses. Change in my vision. I see perfectly still.
And that's what I would wonder, right? Like, would someone go to that degree just to increase? I think he's already probably quite wealthy and he's very famous, and maybe that's what he wanted out of it, right? And there are a lot of people who get into this wanting that. Like even when we were approached about taking our podcast and making it into a show, it's a conversation we had to have. Do we want to do this? But okay, if we're going to do it, we want to do it what we think is the right way, and not amp it up. Like we're not going to put music and underscore things and jump scary stuff. We're just going to let it play out, and maybe it won't make it as entertaining or it won't be as watched, but that's the only way that we can see doing this to keep any sense of credibility and even in our own sense of self-respect. And we don't even provide answers. We just say, this is what we found.
Well, and that's decide. Just it. I mean, people that say they're experts in any of this stuff. Yes, some people have more experience or experiences in Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, whatever it is. Yes, they're awesome to talk to because they have more insight in it than someone like me who has not very many experiences, but there's no experts. It can't be.
Even Peter at 27 years doesn't call himself an expert. And he hesitates to use evidence. He just says we've got proof of something. Whatever that can be, right? Because that's all you can do until science, I think, really wants to take a good, cold, hard look at it and dedicate itself to it. I think that's all we're ever going to really come across. And science doesn't really seem wanting to do that because of the level of hoaxsters and, people profiteering off of it. It makes it very hard to cut through the BS.
Yeah, it sucks when people are willing to take a mask and pig guts and stuff something and go, hey, got a Bigfoot here. Here you go. Oh, finally got one. I know, right? The ass hattery
shot one and it was a bear. They got bear hair or something like that.
It's a lot of ass hattery out there. It really is unfortunate. Well, Jason, let everybody know where they can find, of course, you personally, if you'd like to give that out, Vancouver Paranormal Society, Peter, if you'd like, and then, of course, the upcoming I Want to Believe. Make sure everybody knows when that's coming out on YouTube.
Well, you bet. Yeah. So, Vancouver Paranormal Society, you can find, at vancouverparanormalsociety.net. They're also there's a public group on Facebook. I Want to Believe, you can find that on Facebook as well. That's where we've got ourselves set up. You can just Google I Want to Believe podcast. I think it's still listed as, and we've got a page there. I'm on Facebook at Jason Hewlett. It's pretty. There's a few of us, I guess. There's a comedian named Jason Hewlett. That's not me. And then for Joe Blow, they've got their YouTube. You just could Google joeblow.com YouTube and it'll come up for people there. And we're really excited about it. And we hope it goes over well. And we hope we kind of want to lend a little bit of sanity to the whole paranormal investigation field and science, because we think it's something important. And I think it's an aspect of life that people need to explore more.
Well, Jason, I really appreciate you coming on. And someday I would like to do the triple threat and get Peter on as well, since you guys have, you've got ongoing investigations happening. I'm sure you'll have more stories of getting poked and prodded and pushed, and hopefully nothing too violent, but you guys are always welcome back on.
Well, we'd love to come on. I know Peter would love to too. And he's got more stories. We could sit here for hours and hear all his different stories. And he knows a lot more about it than I do, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk to you, Shannon, and talk about this and the show and everything. I've listened to your show. I love On the Trail of UFO, so it's been great.
Thank you so much. You guys stay safe up there.
You as well down there.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. believe literally in reincarnation. That after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.